Hello, my name is Harvey Thomas. Today I'm talking to Pat Gregory and Jerry Scriven. Pat and his wife Greta and Jerry and his wife Mandy have both developed highly successful networking businesses. The idea of recording this discussion is to give you an opportunity to find out more about a well-known method of generating a second income from two of the leaders in this field. I'm going to start by talking to Pat. Pat, networking is a concept that we're hearing more and more of these days. Tell us what it is and how it works.
Networking is a relatively new form of marketing. Now, we're all familiar with traditional marketing, where the manufacturer sells his products to a wholesaler, who in turn sells it to a retailer, who in turn sells it to the consumer. Whether we buy grocery or furniture, we as consumers tend to buy our goods from the shops and take part in traditional marketing. Networking is a form of direct marketing, where the manufacturer chooses to supply the consumer through distributors rather than through the shops.
Now, Pat, you say distributors. What are distributors?
Distributors are individuals from all walks of life and background who can, by giving the consumer personal service, earn an income from the manufacturer. In addition, a distributor can introduce other individuals to the opportunity and teach and help them build this business and earn income themselves. By doing this, the distributor can earn additional income from the manufacturer by helping other people succeed. This income's unlimited because any people they in turn help become part of the network and further adds to the distributor's income. In our network, because we have such a wide range of quality products and services, we're not limited in our appeal to the consumer, and the distributor can develop a multi-income business without having to resort to door-to-door selling or party plan.
So networking, it's a new term, but it's getting a lot of press these days, isn't it?
Yes, and that's exciting when you consider publications like the Wall Street Journal, which recently stated that between 50 and 60% of all goods and services will be handled by some form of networking by the year 2000. Now, when you further consider that in that same report it stated that since 1978, 20% of the world's millionaires have made their money through a concept of networking, well, those facts certainly made me sit up and take notice.
So the networking concept is building a team to help each other. Now, Jerry, let me turn to you. Can you explain for us some of the benefits of networking?
The main benefit for me was that it allowed me to increase the effectiveness of my time. When I was on a job to maintain an ongoing income, I also had to maintain an ongoing commitment of time. If I stopped working for any reason, the income stopped. But in networking, the income works in a completely different way. It follows the royalty system. So just like an author or playwright, they commit a period of time to a project, maybe they wrote a book or recorded an album. Years later, they're still earning an income from it. That's the royalty system. In networking, you earn an income in a similar way.
Of course, all of us have a limited amount of time, don't we? After all, we only have 24 hours in a day. So networking increases the effective use of your time, Jerry.
That's exactly right. Just like that author, he writes the book. That takes a certain period of time. But every time someone buys that book, and that could be many years later, he derives an income from it. In networking, it works the same way. You develop a network of people, and any time something is marketed through that network, you receive an income from it. This removes the limit to your earning potential. I was always told, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, that time equals money. Well, there was the problem. Even if I was well paid, there was a limit on how much time I could put into my job. Therefore, there was a limit on how much income I could expect from it. With networking, because the income is earned through the royalty system, it's unlimited.
If I could chip in there, that's exactly what I saw. Now, I was in a situation where I had a good job, company car and all the usual fringe benefits, and I was convinced I was in the best job I'd ever had. But, on the other hand, I was beginning to realise that the more successful I became, the longer the hours I worked. The more committed I became to my job, the less time I was spending with my family. I had virtually no home life. Then, one day I took a hard look at the situation I was in, and I became very frustrated when I compared hours spent at work to money and benefits I was receiving from my job. And into the bargain I realised that success in my job had left me with no spare time, no quality time to enjoy life. My 24-hour day was virtually absorbed by job and sleep. So, of course, I was quite open to suggestions as to know how I could better use what little free time I had. Fortunately, about that time, someone explained the networking business to us.
So the first benefit of networking for both of you is the better use of your time. Jerry, what about the benefit in terms of income?
Well, the benefit is that you can double, treble or quadruple your income. As an employee, my income was limited. In this business, it's unlimited.
Now, do you think you've reached your full potential yet?
Oh no, absolutely not. The nice thing is that we've been involved in networking for several years. We've seen an increase in our income every year, and we haven't reached a quarter or a tenth of our income potential. It's great to know that last year was a fantastic year, and this year is going to be even better.
So there's a big income potential. But what about the people who may like the idea of earning more money, but feel that there's more security in what we might call a regular job? Pat?
Of course, in networking, no one gives up their job until they have more than replaced their income from it. And what I found was that the feeling of security was not necessarily in the job or job title, but more in the ability of the person to do the job. After all, if people do not feel that you have the ability, then your security is no longer there. And that raises the concern of having the responsibility to provide for your wife and family and their future security. And that concern is always hanging over your head. You see, I was always told that if you got a good job, you would secure your income, and I worked towards that, climbing the ladder of success with a large company for 10 years. But it didn't take me long to realise that although I had a good job, I had no real security. At one time, I had even toyed with the idea of leaving work and setting up in business on my own. But then it dawned on me that there would be a risk, and I still couldn't guarantee the security for my family and the future. Networking, by contrast, has allowed us, in a relatively short period of time, it took us about 3 years, to fully match the job income without giving up the job, or the income that went with it. It also gave us the choice as to whether or not I worked full-time for someone else, or worked in our own business without the usual risk self-employed people take. So, looking back, we not only have security by way of a larger income, but we also have more personal freedom to control our lives, and freedom of choice is a priceless commodity.
Yes, it certainly is. So, more income, more security. Jerry, what about capital? Some people are frightened about setting up their own business because it takes money to set it up. How much money does it take to start in your networking business?
One of the most important features of this network is the fact that you can actually start yourself in business for a ridiculously small amount of money, certainly when you compare it to a lot of other businesses. Some of our friends set up businesses which involve a high capital outlay, and I look at them working all the hours they can get, and they're earning less income than they would do as employees. One of them, who actually set up a retail shop, recently confided in me that for the first 5 years he hadn't actually taken any income out of the business. He'd been paying back the bank. Well, that was great for the bank manager, but his wife wasn't exactly excited about it. Now compare that to this business. We started networking for under £100. There is no big financial outlay. There is no stock to purchase, and therefore there is no risk. The benefit is that your income, and therefore your lifestyle, increases as your business grows.
Most businesses do start off slowly and don't make much money in the early stages. But what are the other problems with starting a conventional business, Jerry?
The major problem for new businesses is survival. The government in this country doesn't provide statistics for business failures, but a recent Lloyds Bank publication for small businesses quoted the following: all businesses start at year 1. At the end of year 1, 20% were out of business. At the end of year 2, 40%. At the end of year 3, 60%. At the end of year 4, 80% of those businesses were no longer trading. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that the other 20% were profitable. It just means that they'd survived that 5-year period.
Now, those are statistics for starting small conventional businesses, and they're pretty horrifying statistics. Why is that failure rate so high, Jerry?
Well, a major reason is lack of capital. Even though sometimes people put in their whole life savings or remortgage the house to get enough money to start the venture.
And another reason people fail in business is lack of business skills and sound advice. And that's interesting because what we've found to be a major benefit in this networking system is that it's open to everyone, regardless of age, previous experience or skill. You don't have to worry about lack of skill or business experience because the skills and expertise are provided for you by people who are already successful in networking. So the help is therefore at hand from day one, and by using a simple system that has worked for many people over the past 30 years, you can be successful. The other interesting thing about networking, as I mentioned a moment ago, is that because it is a business you can develop in your spare time, you are not faced with a dramatic decision of giving up your full-time job or business. So you can start a networking business in your spare time which can rapidly overtake your full-time income, and so give you the choice of continuing work or to have that free time to spend as you wish. You therefore have a no-risk option now of developing freedom and security for the future.
Pat, you said spare time, but surely most people looking at this opportunity are already very busy, probably working, and have very little spare time.
Yes, that was a serious consideration for me. I was working longer hours than most, but there are a few thoughts that I had at the back of my mind. Firstly, if I was going to go on the way I was going, I could see no improvement ahead. I could see myself having no spare time for the rest of my working life. Secondly, the little spare time I did have was not quality time, it was usually TV time. All I did when I came home from work was to slump into a chair in front of the television and let it entertain me. True, I was there with my family, but we didn't communicate. I was either too tired or too busy. My daughter was usually in bed when I got home and in bed when I went to work in the morning. So how was that real family time? With that sort of future ahead of us, we realised that if we made an effort now and invested some of that wasted time in our own business, we could actually have more free time for the future. As a result, we now have a 24-hour day that is ours. It's not owned by someone else. We have far more freedom of time now than we have ever had before. More time to spend with family, more time to travel, to visit places abroad we'd only dreamed about visiting before. And as our income has increased and become more secure, it means that we have now removed the two factors that used to control our lives, lack of money and lack of time.
Jerry, everything that you and Pat have been saying sounds very appealing. But isn't there a danger that some people might be skeptical of your business because they haven't heard of networking before?
Yes, I think there is a danger that this will happen. I remember the first time someone tried to talk to me about networking. I was very wary of something that wasn't familiar. I'm grateful, though, that I had the sense to find out what was involved before making up my mind about it, or before forming an opinion about it. I think one thing that's worth mentioning is that this isn't just a good idea. It's an expanding business with a turnover of thousands of millions of pounds in over 50 countries. It's a very big business, even if it's not something we're immediately familiar with. So yes, some people may be skeptical because they haven't heard about it before. But there is a bigger danger. As more and more companies use networking to get their products to the consumer, and more individuals use networking as a way to generate an income, there is an increased awareness of networking as a concept, but on a very superficial level. Many people have heard of it, but they're totally unaware of how it works. There is a very real danger of people jumping to conclusions or assuming things about the business that aren't true. Coupled with this is the fact that networking is a generic term, like computing, grocery retailing, or franchising. Franchising, like networking, is an expanding form of business in Britain today. Franchising is great in principle, but there are good franchisers and there are bad franchisers, and you have to look at each on its own merit.
Now, is that the same with networking? For example, does everybody in networking have the same experience?
No, they don't. And networking is a great concept, but there are good companies and bad companies in every field. But you have to see the business before you know how it really works.
Okay, so Pat, what is the next step now for someone listening to this tape?
Well, obviously, the brief discussion we've had today does not go into the detail of how the business works. Our aim with this tape and the book in this pack has been to give you some idea of the features and benefits of this business. If you are interested in what you've heard so far and would like a full understanding of how our business works, then we suggest you get back with the person that loaned you this material and arrange to see the full details. And this, well, will take just over an hour and will in no way commit you to taking the business any further, but will give you the information you need to decide whether or not this is for you.
Pat, thank you very much, and thank you too, Jerry. So now it's up to you. You've heard what networking is, the considerable potential for your income, how easy it is to take part, and what to do next. So I suggest you call the person who gave you this tape now and get started. Goodbye.